Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain, host of the Mental Performance Mastery podcast here. And I could not be more excited for today's guest. Our guest is somebody who I've looked up to as a mentor and has become a friend, somebody whose work I've studied for over a decade. I'm talking about Brian Johnson, the founder and CEO of Heroic, the Public Benefit Corporation, and the author of the book Areté, Activate Your Heroic Potential. Brian is 50% philosopher and 50% CEO and 101% committed to helping create a world in which 51% of humanity is flourishing by the year 2051. As a founder and CEO, he's raised over $25 million, made crowdfunding history, and built and sold 2 social media platforms before Facebook. As a philosopher and teacher, he's helped millions of people from around the world, trained over 10,000 heroic coaches from over 100 countries, and created a protocol that science says changes lives. Now, on this podcast, Brian Johnson and I discuss his path to being a heroic guide. We do a quick tattoo tour and talk about his ultimate commitments. We discuss the 8 cardinal virtues, the 7 objectives, the 3 key areas of life. We talk about his daily routines and processes for personal growth, including his cold plunge technique, his protocol around supplementation, using a PEMF bed in Nano V, as well as tips for everyday optimizers who are trying to be the best version of themselves. If you are a fan of Brian Johnson, I can't encourage more checking out his Heroic app, the Heroic Coach Program, and his new book, Areté, Activate Your Heroic Potential. And if you're new to Brian Johnson, you're going to love today's podcast. You're going to want to get a notebook. You're going to want to listen to this multiple times because Brian brings the juice and dominates the day in the most heroic way possible. Let's join Brian Johnson with today's podcast. Man, couldn't be more excited to be joined by my friend and a mentor, Brian Johnson. Brian, thank you for taking time just out of your amazing schedule and life to join us here on the podcast, my friend.
Kainer, I am so thrilled to be here. I love you. I appreciate you, and I'm fired up to have a great chat.
Yeah, and I think as a guy who I look at as mentors in my life, right? My high school football coach, Ken Ravizza, Rob Gilbert, and you. Talk to us about your path to becoming a heroic guide, because you're my heroic guide. How did you get and transform from being a CEO to now a philosopher and CEO, and kind of your journey to becoming this heroic guide that just empowers and energizes so many people across the world?
Yeah, I mean, there's the longer biographical sketch, youngest of 5 kids, blue collar family, devout Catholic family, Catholic school for 12 years, first generation college student, and all the things that went with that. A father who struggled with alcohol, his dad struggled with alcohol and ended his own life, and just a really interesting kind of petri dish, environmental and perhaps genetic kind of challenges, et cetera. But then I was introduced to Stephen Covey's work when I was going to UCLA, was in a little leadership program, and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It was the first time in my life that I was told you can deliberately, consciously create a life of meaning and purpose. And it just transformed me. At the time, I didn't know what I would do with it, but over the years, became really clear that that was what I wanted to do with my life. I've spent half of the last 25 years as a founder, CEO, built and sold a couple of social platforms before Facebook. And when I wasn't doing that, I was reading and writing and teaching and became a philosopher, a lover of wisdom. But I've just been passionate about understanding what makes great people great, the truly heroic historically, what made them tick, and how can I embody some of those qualities, and how can I inspire and empower as many people as I can to show up as their best, most heroic selves. And it's just been super fun, dude. And even to know, as we've connected more over the years and realized, wow, we met each other virtually forever ago. And just to be here with you is, it's just a blessing, to get to do this. Are we working or playing right now is kind of my joke.
Yeah, but it's both, and it is I go back to 2012. I remember clear as day when I got my first philosopher's note. In Alabama softball had just won the NCAA national championship, and they beat Oklahoma, and Holly Rowe from ESPN during the broadcast actually held up my first book, Toilets, Bricks, Fish Hooks, and Pride. And the thing, it took off. It becomes the #1 bestseller on Amazon. And I'm like, man, I need some help. And I contacted a guy named Jonathan Cardoza. He came over to the house. I'd never met him, helped me out. And that day, for whatever reason, he said, hey, I think you'd really like this Philosopher's Notes. And he showed me on YouTube, you breaking down a book summary. And I think it was maybe The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey, which also had massive impact on my life. And I can say that confidently, I have listened to you through plus ones, masterclasses, 101s, Heroic Coach, mostly Philosopher's Notes since 2012. So 11 years in. And you know, to say that you've had an impact on my life is the understatement of the century. It's been a massive impact. And I think when you talk about, you know, impact, there are things that happen to us or things that we learn or concepts that are so profound and so impactful that we get them tattooed on our bodies. And one of my favorite activities with teams is the story behind the tattoo. And I'll have athletes come up and they'll show a tattoo, a lion on their forearm, and they talk about why that tattoo. And it's a really cool way to get to know them. So I like to say you can judge a person by their tattoos. And I know you've got some tattoos that I want to kind of take a tour around and hear about. So what are the tattoos that you have and why?
Dude, I'm thinking of your tattoos right now. And I'm also thinking, aren't tattoos great? I'll be, going through Whole Foods, I'm checking it out. I'm like, look at you, you're blazing on the forearm. And like, it's such a cool way to learn about somebody.
Totally.
So goosebumps as you say that, super aligned. I love the fact that we're twinning right now too, by the way, wearing the t-shirts. Let's go. But, I got actually this tattoo, which I haven't talked much about, but it's the Sanskrit symbol for the third chakra, which is your source of power, discipline, self-mastery, etc. I got that forever ago. And then I got the Areté tattoo, which of course is the one-word summation of my life's work, the name of the book, why we're wearing the t-shirt. And I got that after Brandon Geyer, who I met through you. He had done work with you and you told him about Philosopher's Notes. He found us and he's become another dear friend. He went through our coach program. He's like, dude, I'm getting Areté as a tattoo. And I'm like, dude, not before I am. So then I went and hit the studio literally like days before he got it. So that's, we're talking about, and we'll get into it, of why I tattooed that. And then on this forearm, I've got Heroic. And I actually got 3 tattoos here. Heroic, and then I've got the mission to which I've dedicated my life, 51, 2051. And then I've got 101 and 1 million. Beneath that. And we worked with our design firm to build the brand for Heroic. They spent an extra few weeks on it knowing I was going to get a tattoo. And I'm like, all right, is this it? I'm going to go put this thing on permanently. Got it the next day. But that's Heroic, which is our public benefit corporation. And then my life's mission is to help create a world in which 51% of humanity is flourishing by the year 2051. To obviously, we're not going to do it alone, but to help create that world. It's inspired by Martin Seligman, who created the positive psychology movement. It was the moonshot goal with which he founded that movement in the year 2000. I thought it was crazy when I heard it. I still think it's crazy, but that's what I've dedicated my life to. The joke is, you write down your goal, you have a 42% greater likelihood of achieving it. Most people write it down on a Post-it, put it on their bathroom mirror. I put it somewhere I can't forget it. But that's the short story on the tattoos, and obviously all in, day one, let's go.
Give me a quick, the word Areté. You have, for the people that are listening to this podcast, Brian's shirt, Areté, across his chest. I got the same exact shirt on. We're going twinsies today. I got a copy of his book here, Areté. Look at that, man. You can't make that up. He grabbed the book at the same time, right? You can't make that up. So, Areté, activate your heroic potential. And it's, this is on my nightstand. I call it a daily reader, but I do it right before I go to bed. So the last thing that I'm reading before I go to bed is some great wisdom from this amazing book that you've put together, 1,001 pages of just masterpiece and life philosophy. They're going to allow you to optimize and close that gap from where you are to where you want to be. And, if you would just unpack the word Areté. You have it tattooed as the cover of your book. Unpack that a little bit more. Why that word? What does it truly mean for the people who are listening to us right now?
Yeah, so it's an ancient Greek word. We translate it as excellence or virtue, but it has a deeper meaning, something closer to expressing the best version of yourself moment to moment to moment. So if you asked Aristotle what the meaning of life is, he'd tell you it is to live with eudaimonia. The summum bonum is eudaimonia, which we translate as happiness, but it really means something closer to flourish. Longer chat, ancient wisdom, modern science agree. That's the ultimate game of life. But then you follow up and say, all right, that's nice. I want to flourish. How? He'll give you a one-word answer. And the ancient Stoics talked about this again and again. It was the primary practice of a good life, which is Areté. So you want to live with Areté. You want to live with it. Virtue, excellence. Again, it's the one-word summation of how to live. And the way I like to frame it up, that I talk about in the book, in the context of teaching my son, who at the time was 10 years old, what it means. He didn't want to do something he really wanted to do. And I like to draw a couple of lines, right? So there's a line here at eye level. For those who are watching, you can see it, but those listening at eye level, this is what you're capable of being in any given moment. And then if there's a line below it, say a foot below, and you're actually being this, and there's a gap between who you could have been and who you're actually being. It's in that gap in which regret, anxiety, disillusionment, depression exists. When you close the gap, when you live with Areté, there's literally no room for that stuff. Now, it's more nuanced than that. But in the moment, how do you feel when you know you did your best? You were fully present, fully alive in whatever aspect of your life. You feel great. You feel eudaimonia, a deep sense of purpose and meaning and joy. So that's the basic idea of Areté. And again, it's what I've dedicated my life to: the tattoo, the book, the one-word summation of everything I believe we need to be thinking about if we want to live a truly great, noble, heroic life.
So you can say Areté is essentially closing that gap to becoming the best version of you, or as Maslow would say, right, closing that gap to achieve what you're capable of becoming, to become what you're capable of becoming. And you also mentioned the virtues, and I know, having studying your work now for over a decade, you talked about the cardinal virtues. And what I love is how on the back of the book, you've put those cardinal virtues on there. Would you talk about those cardinal virtues and, why it's so important to be, if we're to say to be virtuous or to be that best version of yourself, to live in alignment with these cardinal virtues?
Yeah, great question, and then follow-up question, because usually the way that I frame up why Areté matters is I talk about ancient wisdom and then modern science. Because what I've done and what I've spent my life, as doing, is trying to understand what all the great ancient wisdom traditions, all of them, not just the ancient Greeks and Stoics, and then what modern science has to say. So the way I like to playfully say it is, look, you can ask Aristotle and Martin Seligman, the positive psychology guy, the same question. They give you the same one-word answer. So Aristotle told us eudaimonia. Martin Seligman would hold up his book. His most recent book is called Flourish. So the science of well-being comes to the same conclusion. When they founded the positive psychology movement, they studied all of the ancient wisdom traditions. And what they found was they all said the same thing. They all said that a good life comes down to living with virtue. And they basically all had the same 4 cardinal virtues. And so I've kind of integrated and adapted them and then modernized them a bit. But the 4 cardinal virtues of all ancient wisdom traditions and modern science include wisdom. You've got to know the ultimate game you're playing and how to play it well. Discipline. You've actually got to do what needs to get done, whether you feel like it or not. Now, the ancient Greeks and Stoics called that temperance, but that's a weak word for discipline, self-mastery. Then you need to have love. And love is the hero's secret weapon. It's the, arguably the virtue that you want to embody in order to have a great life. And then you need to have courage. Aristotle said courage is actually the most important virtue. It comes from the Latin and Greek words for heart. So just as your heart pumps blood to your vital organs and arms and legs, courage is the virtue that vitalizes all the other virtues. You got to be willing to act in the presence of fear. Those 4 cardinal virtues, wisdom, discipline, love, courage, show up in every tradition. Then I talk about 4 other virtues: hope, gratitude, curiosity, and zest, that are also really highly correlated with your flourishing and sense of meaning. And that's like the next layer, if you will. You talk about Areté, oh, that's nice, but how do you do that? Well, think about these virtues. And then that's nice and warm and fuzzy, but how do you do that? And so the book is all about systematically helping you operationalize those virtues. But we want to have that in mind. You want to know that these should be the compass points, in your life of what virtue do I need more of right now? Is it wisdom, discipline, love, courage, gratitude, hope, curiosity, and zest? those are my mantras. And that's what I, have recited to myself thousands and thousands of times in my meditation, when I'm training, all day, every day.
So what I'm hearing you say is that those 8 virtues, we want to develop all of them, but we can't really intentionally train them all at the same time. Do you intentionally say, okay, right now, my focus, my compass, let's say in the heroic app, you have the compass that you can turn the compass to say, this is maybe what I'm working to live in alignment with at this time. That's how I would use it. So let's say I feel like, man, I don't feel like my discipline is where it needs to be right now. I feel like I'm sleeping in past the alarm. I'm not eating well. My energy is not as where it needs to be because I'm not disciplined. My nutrition is not where it needs to be. Let me turn the compass to discipline and really lock in on that for a time period until I feel like, okay, that's back in check. Which other virtue do I want to level up? Is that kind of what you recommend with the heroic app, is to kind of put that compass where you want to try to go to work on yourself?
Yeah, I think that's important on an abstract level, and concretely too. But then, as you know, with objective 1 in the book and in our coach program and in basic training in the app, it's you got to know the ultimate game. And then objective 2, we talk about forging anti-fragile confidence. But then we move into objective 3, which is you got to optimize your big 3. So we got to move from the abstract, because what does that really mean? I want to live with more love or more discipline or more courage. But we got to figure out the behaviors that we engage in when we are expressing those virtues. And so that's the energy, the work, and the love. And, why we're soul brothers is we're saying the same things in different contexts, different audiences, but it's the same exact thing, which is, all right, who are you at your best? What do you do? What do you not do? A good life is simple. Know who you are when you're at your best and do those things consistently. Now, again, that's a confluence of all the virtues. You got to have wisdom to know that. Then you got to have the discipline to do it. And then love is your secret weapon, because you do it for something bigger than yourself. You do it for your girls and your wife. I do it for my wife and my kids, my community, my team, my friends. All this stuff is driven by love. And then I got to do it, especially when I don't feel like it. But I like operationalizing it in the context of energy, work, and love, and helping people get clarity on a protocol, who they are at their best. And then it's truly really simple. What do you do? What do you not do? Do those things more often, do those things less often, and especially do them when you don't feel like it. And then you can create a great life.
Yeah, I think I've shared with you that I had a baseball player who was drafted out of Arizona State University, and he ended up going to the same high school that Tom Brady went to. And when he got drafted, he was over here and we were having breakfast because I live 15 minutes from Arizona State. So we came to the house before he was going to start his professional baseball career. And I was talking about just the difference between when you go from being in college, where it's very structured and you have all the access to everything on campus, and everyone, coaches are dictating your schedule for you, and you have classes, and there's a lot of structure. When you go to pro baseball, it's not always that way. You have to be structured. The structure isn't necessarily provided for you. And he's like, and we talked about discipline and knowing when you're your best. What are you doing? What are you avoiding when you're not performing your best? Like, what do you think the pitfalls could be for you in this first season? He goes, man, you sound a lot like Tom. And I didn't know at the time he went to the same high school as Tom Brady. I go, who's Tom? He goes, oh, I was texting with Tom Brady. He said the same thing. I said, you were just texting with Tom Brady? Like 7-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Tom Brady? I go, send him the $1 million question. Ask him what he knows now he wishes he knew when he was drafted out of the University of Michigan. And his answer, Brian, was exactly what you're saying. Tom Brady's response was, he said, as soon as you can, find out what's good, what's bad, do more good, less bad, you'll have a great career.
Wow.
So like here we are talking about when you're your best, what are you doing? When you're subpar, what are you doing? Do more of the good, less bad. And when you don't feel like it, really double down. You're saying the same thing as the 7-time winning quarterback, Tom Brady, which is amazing to me. And you talked about the 3 objectives. Could you take us through there's so many places I want to go here. Could you take us through the rest of those objectives, right? Take us through all 7 of those objectives, if you would.
Yeah. So objective 1, again, was you got to know the ultimate game. We've been seduced to play the wrong game. Extrinsic, fame, wealth, hotness. Nope. You're going to be less psychologically stable, scientists say, if you're pursuing those, even if you're doing it successfully, than if you're going after the intrinsic stuff. Become a better person, deepen relationships, and make a contribution. Intrinsic, extrinsic, you got to know the ultimate game. It's a 2,500-year-old challenge. Objective 1. Objective 2 is frankly my favorite. Maybe tied for first with a couple others, but you got to forge anti-fragile confidence. So, we can talk more about how you build confidence, which is intense trust. There's only one way to do it. You got to do what you say you will do. You got to know what your commitments are. You got to make them and you got to follow through. Otherwise, you shouldn't have trust in yourself. You shouldn't have confidence. And you got to be anti-fragile. The opposite of fragile is not resilient. It's anti-fragile. You get stronger the more life kicks you around. How do you do that? Well, you have an algorithm. The more I get kicked around, the worse I feel, the more committed I am to my protocol. Longer chat, but forge anti-fragile confidence. Then we optimize the big three: energy, work, and love. Then we make today a masterpiece. You can't write New Year's resolutions and forget till next year. You got to make a resolution every day to show up, make it a masterpiece, do the things you do when you're at your best. Then objective 5, tied for first, is master yourself, the art and science of behavioral change. You know, installing, deleting habits that are very simple, fundamental things you want to know about. Objective 6, dominate the fundamentals: eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, focusing your attention, etc. Then objective 7 is to activate your superpower. We call it soul force. When you do those other 6 things and you're living in integrity with your highest values, you have a moral charisma, is what the ancient Chinese philosophers would call it. Soul force is what Gandhi called it. Your superpower is activated. All of our favorite heroes, from Ken, you know, who's on your chest, to my guy's on my wall, and Eleanor Roosevelt, who's on my wall, you know, these people we admire, when you're in their presence, they have a felt sense about them. Call it whatever you want: moral charisma, soul force. There's something about them that you can feel. That's what we all have latent within us, that my life's work is about helping you activate in your own idiosyncratic, yet truly heroic way. Those are the 7 objectives that make up the book and literally every single thing that we do.
So to review for the people with us here, we got our cardinal virtues: wisdom, discipline, love, courage, hope, gratitude, curiosity, and zest. In the 7 objectives: know the game, forge anti-fragile confidence, optimize your big 3: energy, work, and love, make today your masterpiece, master yourself, dominate the fundamentals, and activate your superpower. Brian, one of the things that you just talked about was you have to make it tangible, right? You have to go from the clouds into the dirt. You have to make today a masterpiece, and you have to optimize those big 3 of energy, work, and love. And, you know, that's what I love about the success checklist, the heroic app, where you get to make your targets and you get to swipe the targets, which essentially is you saying and voting for yourself: I am heroic. I do what I say I'm going to do. And that's how you make today a masterpiece. Would you talk a little bit more about the importance of creating a plan, actionable plan for the day with behaviors to maximize the big 3 of energy, work, and love?
Dude, again, goosebumps. Yes. And I love the way you're framing it, everything, you know? So then you want to know your protocol. So pilots have checklists. You would never get on a plane with a pilot who didn't go through a checklist. Surgeons who have a checklist, simple stuff, where the surgery team says: hi, my name is so-and-so. We're going to operate on this individual, on this body part. Literally, very simple checklist. Those people who have checklists, surgical teams, kill 42% less people than those, or 47% less people than those who don't. You need a checklist. You need to know who you are at your best. And again, commit to doing that on a day-to-day basis. And the way we architected the app was really important for us, that we made the app such that we helped people commit every day. So as you know, in the app, you got to commit every day. And I was thinking of Michaelangelo when I did that. And I was thinking of the science of pre-commitment. Roy Baumeister, when I had a chat like this with him, Roy Baumeister is the most cited social psychologist. He wrote the book on willpower. He says that willpower exemplars actually don't use their willpower much defensively. They play offense with it. They make commitments in advance. So the app is architected to encourage you and require you to make a commitment in the morning. It only takes a minute. 60, 90 seconds in the morning. But the way I like to frame it up is, all right, think of Michaelangelo in his iconic statue, David. So you know the statue I'm talking about, 17 feet tall. Used to be outside until very recently. It was unveiled in like 1504 or something like that. So it's 15 whatever. Michelangelo is going to unveil the statue of David. He's a young artist at the time, before he did the Sistine Chapel. The question is, what moment in David's heroic life, David and Goliath, what moment in David's life did Michelangelo choose to capture? I don't know if we've had this chat. Have I asked you that question?
No, I don't think so.
What do you think, dude?
I would say the moment before he pulled the slingshot.
You're the closest anyone's ever come. So everyone usually I'm like, all right, cool. No one ever knows the answer to it. Now, importantly, Michelangelo didn't capture the moment after David conquered Goliath, where he's celebrating and it's just awesome, he won. The moment captured in David's heroic life that he thought was the most heroic moment in his life was the moment he committed. It was the moment he decided to step up and try to protect his community and fight. And at the moment, by the way, he made that decision, he was supposed to lose. He was supposed to die.
Yeah.
So the most heroic moment in his life was the moment he committed. So my thing is, you need to make that commitment to be your best self every single morning. And when you do that, you set your intention, your attention follows. In the same way that you program your reticular activating system, that part of your brain stem that filters all the stimuli, that makes you see a car on the road. The most recent car you bought, you see everywhere the moment after you decided to buy it and you bought it. Well, when you commit in the morning, and again, via our app, of course, you simply tap different things you're going to do. Then your attention follows and you're more likely to do those things. Then throughout the day, you swipe. You give yourself a little micro moment of awesome, a little win, a little dopamine for being the best you, which again, science says that's how you change your life. It's the small, micro little wins that give you a deep sense of meaning and purpose. Anyway, that's now a long answer to your short question, but that's how we use the app anyway to help architect a day. You know who you are at your best. You take the time to get clarity. You split it up, energy working off, and then you commit every day. 60, 90 seconds, and then boom, you show up and do it, whether you feel like it or not. And the science is unequivocal. Doing that, we haven't even talked about this. It's crazy what happens in increasing people's energy, productivity, and connection when they do something as simple as that.
And I think if you create, let's say you create that list of targets, behaviors that you want to do on a consistent basis. So for example, some of the things I have in my heroic app right now underneath energy, the ones I think that are most important for me right now would be drink 1 gallon of water a day, sweat before screens, meditate every day. Under work, I have plan tomorrow, tonight. I have show up the best version of me, and I have be present on every call that I'm at, because you can be thinking about the call I just got off, or the thinking about the call I'm doing next, or thinking about the family that's over there, but it's no, be right here where my feet are. And then when it comes to love, it's, did I do a CK 5K and take my daughter on a 5K walk or run? Did I give her a bath? And did I feed Josie, our second daughter? So those are just 3 of the targets that I'm trying, or behaviors I'm trying to do consistently. And I find when I do them consistently, it's because I've architected my day, scripted my day with a routine and a process that when I'm going really good and I'm the best version of me, it's running itself. Talk about the importance of, just for you, your daily routine and what it looks like in a day in the life of Brian Johnson as you're optimizing and being the best heroic version of yourself.
Dude, I'm still buzzing on your routine. I mean, the way you just broke that down, of your top 3 things you do in your energy, your work, and your love to show up like this, that's so incredibly inspiring for me. As I look at it, and as you know, as we launch the social side of things where people can see you and what you're doing and how you stay plugged in, I'm so inspired. I'm like, oh man, I got to step up that part of my game with my love, etc. But in my energy, I'm in bed for 8 to 9 plus hours. Sleep is either my kryptonite or my superpower. I make sure I prioritize my sleep. I meditate for at least 11 minutes every morning, focusing my mind. That's when I have just, my deep intuitive vision of what we can do creatively with heroic. And then I do a series of movement, kind of training stuff. I do 1 sun salutation, 10 pull-ups, 100 burpees, 1,000 meters of rowing, and 10,000 steps every day. I put that in the app as 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, boom. I've missed, less than a handful of days in the last basically decade. That's just what I do. Hard to have a bad day. I'll have ups and downs, but it's hard to have a really bad day when I do that. Mm-hmm. And then if I do have a bad day and I come back the next day and I dominate that, I'm stable. My highs are higher, my lows are higher. My work, I recommit to a sacred vow. I've got 3,000 investors from 75 countries. When I accepted their capital, I made a vow to them that I would show up, I'd practice my philosophy. I recommit to that every morning. Then I do the most important thing of the day. I call it a win. And then I do that throughout the day. You're my win right now. And then I shut down completely by a certain time. I end my day so I can start the next day feeling great. Those are my top 3 work goals. And again, hard to have a really bad day when I do those things. And then the love is I recommit to being with my wife for 51 years and being my kids' best friends when they're adults. I want to be their best friend when they're adult. So I have 51, BFF, and Papa. My kids are 11 and 6, but I fast forward and imagine being their kids' grandfather. And I want to be, tears in my eyes, I want to be worthy of being with my kids, like get emotional right now. Boom, it takes me a split second. And then I have, I eat a challenge like an energy bar as an act of love. Life's supposed to be challenging. Boom, I love challenges. And then I create micro moments with my wife and with my kids deliberately where I'm there with them. What was powerful for me is I got the app and I started using it before even my wife knew, and my mother-in-law, who spends some of her time out on our property. We got a tiny house, she stays in it. So I created the explicit goal to create moments with her and with my kids. A few days into having the app, she told my wife, something's different with Brian. I get goosebumps right now, and again, I pride myself on being a decent guy, but I was trying a little harder because I was making a commitment. I was looking for the opportunities to practice love. Frankly, it's the thing that gave me the most confidence in the app, that my mother-in-law noticed that I was a little different. And I'm proud of guys like us, in particular, Sean, Brandon, who we show up powerfully in our energy and our work. And to find a way to help everyone, particularly men like us, show up in their love and to operationalize love in a meaningful way. The fact you go on a 5K with your daughter every day, dude, and that's an explicit goal you set for yourself is so cool and so inspiring. But those are my energy, work, and love, big 3. And what's so cool is that ours were totally different. So the structure is there, but it allows for idiosyncratic expression. Your checklist is different than mine. All of your athletes, and I know you do a lot of work with them with habit creation and all the things, they're all different. I got to make my bed. I know you practice that and get everybody to practice it, but it's not one of my top 3s, but of course I do it every day. And these little things matter when you're trying to live a truly great life. And it's insanely inspiring for me to hear you reflect yours back. This is it, dude. This is literally how we change the world, is to help people step back, get clear on the ultimate game, energy, work, and love, and then operationalize it, and then support one another in practicing these ideas and making it fun, making it as engaging as anything else we're doing that isn't as virtuous and noble and constructive.
Man, it's so many questions to ask. One that comes up is when we talk about energy, work, and love, and as I've shared that with people who I coach in our communities, based off of your work and research. And one of the questions I get a lot is they go, hey, I'm good with the energy goals. I'm going to work out and take care of me. I'm good with the work goals. I want to go make X or do whatever. But then they get really uncomfortable with the love goals and they don't necessarily want to share those, or they don't know how to create them. So what would you say to the person who's struggling or uncomfortable with creating love goals?
Dude, again, goosebumps for the 20th time already. I'd show them yours. I'd say, this is what I do. I'd say, look, first we have identities. We haven't talked about it, but of course we help people get clarity on their identities. And there's another huge body of research on the power of self-image. You will never outperform a bad self-image. And you've got to know who you are at your best. Identity means repeated beingness. You need to commit to being that, and you need to be that. So I'm a soulmate is how I frame it up. Right now, you and I are connecting soul to soul. It's not just my wife, it's my kids, it's you, it's everyone. I want to connect soul to soul. And then I've got virtues. So for me, I'm joyful, I'm connected, I'm encouraging. Those are my top 3 virtues. I want to be that guy that when you're with me, you feel that. You feel a joy for life. You feel that I'm right here connected with you, and you feel that I'm encouraging you. I want to do that with my kids. I want to do that with my wife. And then what specifically am I going to do? Well, these are what things I do, but I believe that what you just shared with us, it made me better. Hearing you say that you're doing a CK5, I'm like, my God, I work out every day. And sometimes I work out with my kids, but that's when I'm at my best. I pick them up. I do pull-ups on a tree, right? So I pick my kids up and they bang out a pull-up or 2. It's awesome. I'm not doing that every day. Why am I not doing that every day? You know? So I think that sharing our own journeys and our own challenges with this, and frankly, the fact that they do have resistance proves my point that it's easy to show up in energy and work. But you tell me where you find the most challenge and the most struggle and when you lose the most sleep. For me, it's when I'm in an argument with my wife where I didn't show up the way I want to with my kids. So getting good at this is unquestionably, at least tied for first, is the most important skill we need to cultivate. And I think we do it through the humble sharing of this is what works for me. Well, you tell me, what are you doing at your best? You know, you got a little baby. How about you change a diaper a day? Guarantee you that, you know, your wife's going to appreciate that. You're going to connect with the kid. Just make it a target. It may sound too simple to be great, but that's what you do, dude. I've watched your stuff. I know who you work with. I know the video you shared, I don't know if you shared it publicly, before that home run and the precision with which, do you share that publicly?
Yeah.
Yeah, the precision with which he went through that routine. So then the deal is, dude, the same way that you show up with your 10 count before you take a pitch, what are you doing at love? Do you have anything? And why not? Because it's at least, and then how about you consider something like this? You go on a walk with your kids, or you know, whatever, fill in the blank on what might be there. And of course, it's a longer chat, but just the fact that you have benefited from it and that it's a muscle, dude. They just haven't trained it yet. Like it's a reverse indicator.
Yeah. In the love muscle, like for the person who maybe just got divorced and is now single again, or single and hasn't found a person yet. It's like, don't think about love always as a romantic type of love. Think about it. I love how you said soulmate, and just connecting with other people and how you show up in the present moment and just loving your life and loving what you have, you know, and that comes back to something you mentioned earlier. I want to unpack, and it's one of the cardinal virtues of gratitude, you know, and one of my favorite philosopher's notes you did is on Gratitude Works by Robert Emmons. And, you know, you mentioned the hospital and the checklist. Another favorite one is the Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, amongst 100 favorite ones. But talk about the power of gratitude and having a gratitude practice where you write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day.
Gratitude is so powerful, as you know, but the research, Robert Emmons, conservative research scientist, and this is one of my love practices, by the way, to practice gratitude. So appreciate someone or something every day. It's one of my targets. And we can talk about micro moments as well, which is huge in Love 2.0. But gratitude, you know, Robert Emmons says, eye-popping stats. The short story is gratitude improves everything. It's impossible to be simultaneously depressed and grateful in that same moment. And again, the playful thing is, don't believe me, try it out. You know, the next time that you feel overwhelmed and stressed and depressed and all that, pause. Think about one thing that's amazing in your life, because the reality is, he says, in those moments, you're taking a lot of things for granted. But the wisest among us don't. They take them as granted. The fact that you and I are connecting right now, the fact that we're alive to have the problems we have, we've all got problems. I'm not diminishing that. But gratitude is incredibly powerful. Keeping the gratitude journal for a few weeks, once a week, 5 things you're grateful for, you boost your happiness 25%. There are very few things that do that. Playfully heroic is among them. Half the science done, you know. But you improve your sleep, you improve your overall energy, your well-being, etc. And you can make that a part of your love practice. To pause, think of one thing or one person for whom or for which you're grateful, and boom, there you go. Okay, back at it. Gratitude is it's an incredibly powerful virtue. It's tied for second as the most powerful virtue, by the way. So hope and gratitude, they arm wrestle about. You got to have hope, you got to have gratitude, but it's actually zest, it's energy, a sense of vitality that's the greatest predictor of your sense of well-being and flourishing.
I love how you define zest on the back of Areté. I dominate anything that says dominate. I'm going to dig. I dominate my fundamentals. So I have heroic energy, you know, and the fundamentals are what's in the heroic app. The fundamentals are, as you said, it's eat, move, mindset, sleep, how you breathe, how you focus. And all of those fundamentals, the thing I love about Areté, especially since you've taken, the social pieces, I can go and click on you. I can click on Michael. I can click on Sean Casey. I can click on Brandon Geyer. I can click on anybody who's in the whole community and see what their targets are and be able to look and see, oh, wow, okay, this is what Brian is doing for his love protocol and his love behaviors. Man, I want to try that, and if I don't know what it is, I might message you and say, hey, what is this? Would you unpack it for me? And it's just been a really cool way to, coming out of your live event that was in LA last year and being able to still just see what people are doing, and follow up and stay connected. And it's been really, really cool, man. And, I think when we're talking about energy, one of the things that I've struggled with that you teach and I want to get better with is the shutdown complete, and at the end of the day, the shutdown routine, and as Matt Carpenter, who we referenced earlier, Major League Baseball player with the San Diego Padres and was with the Yankees and the Cardinals, he said something in a podcast we did recently where he said, well, when I learned to turn it off at the end of the day and not think about baseball when I'm home, it gives me more of an opportunity to turn it on the next day. And it just ties right in with what you talk about the most important routine is the shutdown routine, because how you shut down really dictates what you can do the next day when you turn it on. But for a lot of my clients and people listening to this, the athletic directors who are stressed and pulled in a lot of directions, the professional athletes where everything is on the line every day, they have a really hard time separating the who and the do and shutting down. What are some of your best shut down complete protocols that you follow that you feel like would work, universally?
You can throw me into that group as well. I mean, anybody that cares what
That's
they're doing,
good to hear, man.
Dude, stress comes with meaning, and it's like, but that practice of having that ability to compartmentalize and it's one pitch at a time, whatever the metaphor is, like there are very few more important life and leadership and performance skills, of course, than that. I'm here right now. But yeah, I mean, clearly that's a challenge for all of us, full stop, period, in any domain of life. But I have found it most important to recognize how powerful it is. So before we get into the tactics of what I do, the most important thing is always seeing that it is worth trying to do at a high level. So for me, I've noticed that I do my best when I'm well rested, full stop. When I've got a good night of sleep, I'm a different human being than when I don't. Therefore, my PM bookend, the end of my day routine, frankly, is the most important thing I do, because it creates the next day's energy. And if I'm up late, whether it's working, I haven't had a TV in 15 years. Netflix and I don't get along beyond Last Dance and this and that once in a while, but I'm not up late doing those things. But when I go too far and I work too late, then I'm buzzing a bit and I can't fall asleep as well. And I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm thinking that I wake up a little bit enervated rather than energized. I don't like that feeling. I know what it feels like to feel great. In any marginal diminution, let alone a big diminution in that, I don't like. So I make the connection. Oh, it was a bad shutdown complete routine. And then I'm performing at, dude, I like to perform at 101%. And I know that I can do stuff at that level that I just can't do no matter how much I work. Therefore, I've made the connection. Then I come back to the end of my day. And again, this needs a lot of work for me right now because I'm hammering. We got the book. It's a totally different identity that I'm embodying right now. Bubble wrap is off, as I like to say.
I was going to say, hermit mode is gone.
Hermit mode's gone, dude. And you got to be flexible. You got to know what your constraints are, embrace reality. But you got to create a 30-minute, 45-minute, 60-minute buffer between the last input, blue light stimulation, cortisol stimulating emails or texts or whatever, and allow yourself to recover consciousness-wise. And what I do is I stack it. End of day, and then family, when I'm doing it right. And then I get two benefits. And we talked about it before we came on, that your commitments to your kids and your family, you've cut off X hours a day. But I would argue you're more productive than you've ever been, because now you're focused on what's important. You got tight constraints. But anyway, I create those constraints. I have a shutdown complete ritual, however imperfect it is. And it's an amazing predictor of the next day's energy. But prioritizing it is always the most important, and then the tactics, frankly, are pretty easy. It's, I got to quit doing that past this point in time. I want to be in bed by this point, this many hours in bed. Therefore, 30 minutes, 60 minutes before I'm done. And then I'm fully present with my family. I'm relaxing, I'm re-energizing while deepening my relationships, and everything wins,
Yeah, you're reverse engineering the goal. Saying if my target is, let's say, like for me, my target is bed at 8 o'clock. So I know, okay, shut down, work day, 5 o'clock. And then I try to literally leave. I took this from you of the phone in the drawer. I have an office on our property, not attached to the house. And I try to leave my phone and computer over here. And when I walk across the property, that's me flipping the switch off from work and on into dad mode, and then trying to get ready to shut it down at 8 o'clock so that I can get up at 4. Because if I want to invest in me in the morning, I got to be done by about 5:30 because that's when the kids are getting up. So I don't prefer to get up at 4 o'clock, but that's where I'm at. That's my reality for this time period, and it is what it is. You either answer the bell or you don't. And I think some of the strategies that I've used to help me on those moments where last night I was up until 10:30 because my wife was playing in an ice hockey game, and I was up this morning at 3:30 because I had a meeting that was literally starting at 5 I needed to prepare for anyway. So some of the things that I do to really help me with that is like the cold plunge. And I feel like that's almost like free caffeine for me. Explain how you use the cold plunge protocol, because you're really kind of the person that put me over the edge to buy one and to get into that on a daily routine. So explain your protocol and the benefits and why you cold plunge.
I'm going to get to that after I get to because my wife was playing an ice hockey game, dude. You won the wife lottery. Let's go. That's so great.
Yeah, she scored 2 goals, casual.
Of course she did. That is so good. Caners unite. Oh my goodness, dude. So I had to make sure we reflected on that. That's a good reason to be up till 10:30 and get up at 3:30.
For sure. 1000%.
Yeah. So cold, like I love burpees, I love cold because they're things that force me out of my comfort zone. From a mechanics perspective, Wim Hof describes it brilliantly in his book of you've got millions of little tiny micro muscles, that aren't being worked out in your cardiovascular system when you are living within a 3-degree plus or minus, air conditioned heating environment reality that just isn't natural. So I'm sold on that. And then what I've seen it do to my HRV, my resting heart rate, just got me there. But I did mine early today, but I like to do it in the afternoon. So it's kind of often it's a transitional point for me between work and love. Well, I'll go in and do the plunge around, 4 or 5, depending on when I'm at. But I like to do it. I've experimented, but a few hours before I go to bed. Frankly, if I do it too soon before bed, like an hour, Aura doesn't read everything properly because everything's a little bit different being freezing and cold. But I love it. It's huge. The psychological benefits, I think, are profound. And all the other kind of hormetic stress benefits that come by doing something like that. But I do basically 49 degrees, 2 minutes is kind of the protocol, and love it.
Is there a reason why you landed on 49 degrees? I know you know all the science and research behind it.
Nah, dude, apparently all you got to do is get to that point where you don't want to do it. So if you have that, reflex, which you can get somewhere in the 50s, frankly, you've done a lot, in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, even a cold shower, of course, does it. I'm on the road, bam, 2 minutes, Toronto cold water, in the fall, boom, let's go, doing the same thing. But I'm kind of when I get into something, I get into it. So 51%, 49%. So I get into the cold plunge at 49% to represent doing something I don't want to do, to hopefully, play my role well to help create that 49, 51. But that's the ridiculous reason I have 49. There's no science behind it other than it's cold enough to do something and it means something for me,
I probably should have woke up at 3:30 every morning. Maybe I would have been a 3:30 hitter when I was playing baseball, but
there's something like that. I don't know.
What about sauna? Do you do heat at all? Are you into sauna protocol at all too?
My wife loves the sauna. I'm not a sauna guy. I love natural Austin humid saunas. I'm a big fan, but dry saunas and I just aren't we have a love-hate relationship. I prefer the cold. I prefer humid. People complain about Austin heat. I love it. I love training in the heat. And then having the cold to kind of bounce back and forth. But obviously, all the same benefits on the other side of the spectrum with the heat. You love the sauna though, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I like it because it makes me sweat and it's a challenge, right? And if it's a challenge, it's good mental training, whether it's a sauna, whether it's cold, whether it's changing diapers, whatever it is, I mean, if it's if we can chalk it up as good mental training, which is a concept, again, I picked up from one of your books. I can't remember what Navy SEAL it was, where he said, it's all good mental training, all of it, all of the time. I think that's just one of my favorite concepts amongst many that we've picked up. And, at your Heroic Live event that in 2023 that you did in Los Angeles, you had a Nano V and you had a PMF bed. And I know those are part of your protocol as well. Could you kind of unpack those for us? Because I think those are two, call them recovery modalities that people are not really aware of, that are amazing and transformational.
So this goes into my wifey told me to do it bucket. So I do what my wife tells me to do. It's kind of like one of those things that when I turn on the light switch, the light goes on. But I don't know exactly how that works and why it works, but darn it, there's light. So the Nano V and the PEMF are, to your point, some, I guess, cutting edge kind of recovery mechanisms, but I use them every day. So every morning when I'm meditating, I'm on the PEMF machine and I'm using the Nano V. I won't even pretend to get into what the benefits are, but I do what my wife tells me, and I'm very consistent with it. It's one of my targets that I hit. And from what I can tell, it's helping. And, we've obviously, we've worked with Nano V. They sponsored the event that we did. Big fan.
Supplements, any supplements that you take on a daily basis, whether it's fish oil or creatine or anything that you feel like your research has shown, hey, if this is something that's good across the board, I'm going to make it a consistent part of my supplementation routine.
Yeah, so I'm less supplements and I'm more fundamentals. So my thing with nutrition is always not what you're supplementing, but what you're not doing. It's the kryptonites. So what I don't do is I do no sugar. I do no refined processed foods. And that to me is 95% of it. You're not going to out supplement a bad diet, and we all have things that we know that we shouldn't be doing that we are doing. And then I rarely talk about it, what I do because it's so idiosyncratic and it's so, evolving. Yeah, I mean, I do some magnesium before I go to sleep, things I'm thinking out loud. I do, I'm interviewing Ben Greenfield, in a half an hour on my side here, who's got Keon amino acids. I do those on a consistent basis. And I do, vitamin D, vitamin K, a few simple supplements and vitamins, but I don't do a lot. And again, I always come back to the fundamentals of, all right, it's the things you're doing that aren't good for you. And stopping doing those is always the fastest way to change your life, whether it's drinking or too much social media or too much sugar or processed foods. That's by far the fastest way to change your life, is to stop doing the things that don't work. It's just non-negotiable. That's a long non-answer to your question.
Yeah, no, it's good though. I like it's not about what you say. You can't out supplement a bad diet, So as I walk through the kitchen, and Halloween is on the horizon here, right, in October as we're recording this, and I walk past the candy bowl, it's like I need to walk past the candy bowl and throw it in the damn garbage is what I need to do, so that because otherwise it's like you say with the behaviors. If there's behaviors that you want to do consistently, make them easy. If there's behaviors you want to break, make it really hard. If you don't want to eat the candy, don't have the candy in the house, and that goes 100%. For alcohol, that goes for, sites on your phone, whatever it is. So good advice there. Speaking of more advice, just kind of everyday optimizers, I just got a couple questions left, and tips for any everyday optimizer that you would suggest.
Wow, we covered some good ones.
Maybe that water bottle that you're drinking from, the Mountain Spring.
We had that chat, huh? So I had that, hey, dude, quit drinking water out of a plastic bottle. We're talking marginal gains on that one. But again, wifey approved, we're a bit of water snobs. But I think that the main advice would be to think about the idea that Brian and I just discussed that most landed. That was one of those, like, it wasn't a new idea, almost certainly. It was just a reminder of something you already knew. But see if we can get you to a point where you're activated, where it's like, oh, wait, it's time for me to move from theory to practice to mastery on that. The one thing that you think could be most life-changing out of this. And then it's less the thing and more your thing. Which again is that structural kind of, hey, these ideas are worth considering, but then the idiosyncratic expression will always be unique. But the practice I come back to the most is, what's the number one thing that I could start doing that would most positively benefit my life if I did it consistently? And then what's the number one thing I could stop doing that would most fundamentally change my life. And I do that all the time, whether I'm kind of getting a little bit wobbly and things are moving a little fast and I want to just reground and stabilize, or I just want to go next level. It's the number one plus, number one minus, with an emphasis on it's the thing you're going to stop doing, the kryptonite that's going to most change your. I found that to be really powerful.
I love that. You just, and, you know, listeners to this podcast, you've heard us talk about the start, stop, continue. And Brian just said it, right? It's what can you start doing? Keystones. What can you anchor down? What can you stop doing? Kryptonite. What can you get rid of? And then obviously you're doing something well. So what can you continue? And maybe if you feel like you're just doing one thing well, then let's start there and be consistent with that. And, you know, to wrap up today's call, Brian, I think one of the things that I want all of our listeners to start doing is engaging with you more. And I know there's three, you know, resources that are a huge part of my life: the Heroic app, the book Areté, and your Heroic Coach program. And for anybody listening to this, if you're wanting to level up yourself and coaching yourself or your family or your teams, the Heroic Coach program. If you want to get into Philosopher's Notes and the plus ones and get more of Brian Johnson, which I've listened to him every day for over a decade, check out the Heroic app and all the great resources that are in there. And if you want to do it more in a reading context, check out the book Areté. What's the best place, do you think, Brian, for people to get started on their journey? Let's say today's the first time they've been exposed to Brian Johnson. What's the first step you would invite them to take?
First of all, I just feel so much gratitude for you, dude. And even as you're saying that, I'm like, the thing I can't wait to do with Heroic is at Brian Cain. And you and I have talked about it, but shining a brighter light on you and your wisdom, which I do in the book. You know, Kainer's in the book multiple times. You've impacted me deeply and inspired me. And you're the demonstration of everything that I aspire to be and that I want more people to live. And I'm just so grateful for us. And frankly, that's how I think we're going to change the world, is bringing a brighter light to you and to all the people of influence that are listening to this and that you're working with, and you're their guide, you know? And that's really, really inspiring for me. And I cannot wait to continue to build the tools to be worthy of that and to help you lead your heroes as a guide on our platform, frankly, is the thing I'm most excited about. Then there's the book, Areté. Get it on Amazon or wherever you get books. Really excited about it. And again, grateful for your support and proud of it. It's basically 451 micro chapters, little ideas that are the like best of my life's work to help you activate your heroic potential on those 7 objectives, etc. You know, start it anywhere or read it through 1, 2, 3 minutes at a time is kind of the approach. And then the Heroic app you can find in the iOS store, Android, or heroic.us. And then the coach program. We've been blessed to have over 10,000 people from 100 countries. Sean Casey, Brandon Geyer, you know, we've had some really amazing human beings go through it. Half of the people that go through it are coaches who want to go next level as coaches, but the other half are, quote, just people who want to go next level in their lives. And the reality is we're all coaches. We're all guides for the heroes in our lives. And we're proud of the science we've done on that, proving that it works. And of course, we'd be honored if anyone wanted to join that. That's heroic.us/coach. But dude, super grateful. I love connecting with you. Any time you spend with Brian Cain, as I say in the book, is a good time. Literally, it's like
yeah, humbling, Brian, a very humbling, man, to be featured in the book and to get to know you, you know, and we talk about setting goals at the end of the year. And I had goals literally years ago to be able to get to meet you and get to come to your house one time when I was down in Texas, which I am frequently, and get to walk on the trail and get to participate in one of your events and, you know, have you on my podcast. And it's almost like I have to pinch myself. Am I dreaming right now? Because those things have happened. So I appreciate the relationship more than you'll ever know. I appreciate the mentorship, and man, I just appreciate you being you and showing up for our audience today to help us continue to, you know, get to the world to a place where we're living heroically. So we'll link to the Heroic Coach program, the Heroic app, the Areté book. All those links will be in the show notes below this podcast. And Brian Johnson, thank you, Sensei. Thank you for showing up today, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. And I can't end with that. I got to go back to you, dude. You are one of my favorite people on the planet. You are such a good human being. You're the best in the world at what you do from my vantage point. And more importantly, you're just a good man. So you truly need to know you inspire me to be a better man. The time that my kids spent with you, we're breaking arrows, we're eating fire, we're doing magic tricks, dude. You bring a joy and an effervescence and just your own, you're just a good human being, man. So I feel so blessed. And it's one of those, like, Peter Drucker said a good relationship, or maybe it was one of his proteges who said a good relationship is one where each person feels like they're getting the better end of the deal. You know, I feel like I'm the one who just got so lucky to be here with you and to have you in my life, and all the people you've so generously connected me with who are impacting our movement, man. So truly love you, appreciate you. Day one, let's go. Can't wait to see you again in person soon.
Day one, dominate today. Brian Johnson, thanks for being with us.